Um, some basic housekeeping, we have a chat feature and a Q&A feature. As we're going through, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A feature. That helps us keep track of questions that y'all have. If you would like to be a part of the conversation, please join us in the chat. You can definitely feel free to tell us your thoughts as we're going through. And I wanted to give an introduction to DC Pro Bono Week generally. If this is your first time hearing about DC Pro Bono Week, congratulations, you're tuned into one of the best opportunities to learn about pro bono here in the district. DC Pro Bono Week is fantastic, especially for law students. I want to highlight we have a list of events that has over 20 events. And I think the best way for law students to use it is to really review things that you would like to see as opportunities for your future career path. If you're interested in family law, environmental justice, immigration, we have events on all of it. I highly recommend that you check them out. Many of them are virtual and all of them are free to give you the opportunity to get engaged as easily as possible. You will hear from experts from across the district that work in these different areas every single day, telling you what they see the need for pro bono is, as well as just talking about generally what it looks like to be involved in that area of practice on the ground right now. That's a fantastic way to really get to know and understand what it means to be a lawyer in this moment, especially in an interest area that you have. So I want to encourage you to check out the full list of events. Please don't feel overwhelmed. Just look for ones that are aligned with your interests and register. Even if you can't attend live, registering allows you to get access to the resources in the follow-up email, as well as the recordings from most of those events. So you'll be able to still access those resources, even if you have a busy schedule right now, if you're in the middle of midterms or things like that, we want to make sure that you can still get access to those resources. So I highly, highly recommend checking that out. With that being said, I am now going to turn it over to our incredible panel, starting with Jen Church from Georgetown.
Thanks so much, Chris. Really wonderful to be here, and happy Pro Bono Week Eve. And at least I am thrilled to be in sweater weather finally in the DC area. But to those all around the country, thanks so much for joining us. Chris did a wonderful job of giving an overview of our goals for today. And I know we have a packed agenda, so I'm going to dive right into our conversation and have asked, and just to let you know, I am the Director of Pro Bono Programs at Georgetown Law. So this is an area near and dear to my heart, and also on the board of the Washington Council of Lawyers. So any general questions you can certainly pose about the council as well. But we're going to jump into the panelist background first. They're just a wonderful range, terrific range of professional experiences. So I've asked each of them to introduce themselves and give us a glimpse into their career paths to date, and then the programs that they currently work with. So we're going to start off with Adrienne.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so lovely to have you all here. My name is Adrienne Clark. I'm the Director of Externships and Public Interest Programming at Howard University School of Law, which includes our pro bono programs. I came into this work after being a career counselor at Georgetown, actually, in their public interest office for 5 years. They let me become a public interest career counselor based on my work as a child abuse and neglect attorney at Children's Law Center here in Washington, D.C. I started my career at a law firm for a couple of years where I regularly engaged in pro bono work, and then was able to transition into being a public interest attorney full time. At Howard, we have a robust pro bono program where we do a lot of work in collaboration with the other DC law schools to promote pro bono and provide training and pro bono opportunities. So I hope you all will get in touch with your pro bono director or your pro bono person at your school, because each school is different. At our school, we have both community service and pro bono as part of our pro bono pledge. Sometimes our externship hours count as well, depending on the course. So there are a lot of ways to do really good work in the time that you have. It's so lovely to see all of you.
And Michael.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Chobatov, and I am a current workers' rights advocate for the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. I think my career path will look a little bit different than most of the people here. I haven't gone to law school yet. I just graduated undergrad from Vanderbilt University. Um, and I studied public policy as well as music. Public policy kind of led me down the route of pursuing civil rights in a variety of different spheres, including environmental law, immigration law, and most recently workers' rights, which I am involved in the Washington Lawyers Committee. To tell you a little bit about the committee, we work on civil rights cases in a lot of different spheres, including immigration, education, disability, prisoners' rights, and finally workers' rights. And the opportunity that I'm going to speak to you all about today is our Workers' Rights Clinic. Our Workers' Rights Clinic is a free legal service, brief service and legal guidance clinic that essentially allows typically lower income individuals to come and have an intake with an intake volunteer, and then receive some legal guidance, a potential demand letter on the issues that they're facing in their workplace. It's a great opportunity to make a direct impact in a very quick manner. And just to, I guess, tell you a little bit more about the program, we do, for every intake that you're able to complete, we do offer 3 volunteer pro bono hours. So that's a great way to get those for any bar certifications. And yeah, I guess I might talk about it a little bit more later, but that's pretty much the summary of the Workers' Rights Clinic.
And Emily?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for having me. My name is Emily McCabe. I am pro bono counsel at the American Bar Association Commission on Immigration, the ABA COI for all those letters. And the commission directs the ABA's efforts to ensure fair treatment of and full due process for folks who are non-citizens in the United States, which include asylum seekers, immigrants, and refugees. And I am currently a pro bono counsel here. And before I was at the ABA, I was an attorney working in the nonprofit immigration legal services in Northern Virginia. And doing mostly removal defense and all the SAD visas, as I called them, asylum, SIJS, U visas, Ts, the alphabet soup. And I really enjoyed my time there, but it was time for a change. So then I came to the ABA. And I actually, when I first came to the ABA, I started with focusing on resource development for the FGLOP program, which is the detained dockets, the dedicated family dockets, and then switched roles, and now I am in my current position. So I get to, just as all the folks here today have been talking about, get to encourage folks to do pro bono and get involved in different projects. The project I'm going to talk to you all today about is our court observation and awareness project. And I'm really excited to chat with you all about it.
And Eric.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks again for everyone coming and for having me here. My name is Eric Peffley. I'm a senior counsel with the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless, doing their civil rights work. Prior to joining the legal clinic, I was a trial attorney at the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division Criminal Section, where I prosecuted hate crimes and police misconduct around the country. Before going to law school, I studied philosophy and music composition, so I did just learn that about Michael. We have 2 musicians here. I also served in the U.S. Army Reserve and deployed to Iraq 2 different times, and that experience inspired me to pursue human rights law as the most effective way to establish governance. And then I was fortunate enough after law school at the University of Minnesota, in their human rights program, to get an opportunity to move into the civil rights division at Department of Justice, where I got to be a part of an organization that its main mission in the criminal section was to ensure that law enforcement agencies respected individuals' constitutional rights. I started there. I got my foot in the door as the special assistant to the head of the Civil Rights Division back in 2014 and kind of fell in love with the criminal section's work and was able to move over there, filling a law clerk role as a paralegal for about a year and a half. And then I got an investigator job in the same section and then uh, was put on a detail at the U.S. Attorney's Office where I got to do some domestic violence prosecutions in DC, and then got a permanent trial attorney role and was working in that role for about 5 to 6 years. I resigned my position there back in May of this year and recently joined the legal clinic to help stand up their legal monitor program. Just a quick word about the legal clinic as a whole. It's been around since 1987 and has been committed to a community lawyering approach where they provide low barrier and comprehensive legal services to help vulnerable individuals and families with issues such as emergency shelter, subsidized housing, identification, public benefits, consumer issues, and street rights. There's also a systemic advocacy team that pushes for public policies to address underlying issues that contribute to housing insecurity. And we have an outreach team as well that is constantly interacting with the homeless and impoverished community in DC. So I'm honored to be a part of that organization. I just got here not all that long ago. And again, my main purpose is to work on and stand up the Legal Monitor program, and that's what I'm here to be sharing information with you about today.
Thanks so much, all. And now we're ready to dive into the nuts and bolts of each project. So if you could give us just an overview for the providers, and we'll start with Emily. What a day in the life might look like for a volunteer with your organization, and what resources they may expect, training, preparation, that they'll receive from you all, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. So with our court observation and awareness project, the folks are going into immigration court. And typically it's local immigration court. And in the DC area, we do have a specific course. We have our nationwide course, which focuses on in-person court observation. And then our DC area kind of special VIP course. That one is basically our nationwide information plus, and it has a little bit more tips and tricks about the local courts. There's 4 local immigration courts in the DC area. There's one in Annandale, Virginia, in Sterling, Virginia, in Hyattsville, Maryland, and in Baltimore, Maryland. And so we have some tip sheets for folks who are interested in those courts. We also have limited virtual opportunities to see some detained dockets in through the Annandale court. So we have a little bit more flexibility depending on if folks want to be in person or virtual for folks in the DC area. And then also we have our nationwide as well. So you don't have to stick around here if you are not located in DC. There are plenty of other opportunities. And as far as training, we have a teachable course, which is like an online course. And you can go through the training, and we go over different parts of what is immigration court, what you can expect, dress code, all that sort of stuff. And our big piece of advice for our program specifically is that there are a lot of really fabulous activist organizations, but we are not one of those. We are strictly there to observe and report. And we're happy to connect you with local organizations that have a more activist approach. But we see our role to just try and collect as much information as possible in order to help advocacy efforts on both the national scale and local scales. For example, one of our recent office hours, which we have the first and third Friday of every month, at one of our recent office hours, there was some weird information about happening at a couple of particular immigration courts. And so in addition to taking note, we also directly contacted attorneys and the local AILA chapter, which is an association of immigration attorneys, to make sure that everybody knew, hey, this is happening. And if you were in court that day, it's not just you. So it's been great on both a very, very small scale and a large scale. And the way that we are able to do those advocacy efforts is absolutely because of students like you who are observing what's happening in the immigration courts.
Thank you, Emily. And could I just have you elaborate on the day of, if a student, I know we'll get into how to sign up, but what sort of length of service you're talking about per day, and that sort of preparation to give them a sneak peek into the training.
Yeah, absolutely. So the day of is typically, if the person is going in person, we suggest typically the dockets start at 8:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. And so we suggest that you get there early because there's often lines to get through security. So you go through security at the immigration court. And before that, you have done all of our fabulous training. And of course, you have all your notes and you're 100% prepared. And you also have, we recommend a printed out, we have a packet that you can just download and then print out that has a bunch of observation forms in it. So that way you don't have to print the same thing 6 times and you don't have to try and memorize what's happening in court. And there's room to take notes as well, in addition to fill out the form. And so then there's a few different ways that you can choose where to go. Often the approach that I always liked is just following the crowd. So you can just follow the crowd, and where it looks like there's a bunch of people going to one room, that's probably a master calendar hearing, which is exactly what we would like to be observing. So you can follow the crowd and try to get into that room and just sit in there and take notes. And the form guides you through, and in the training we go through each part of the form. We would love it if the immigration judges would follow our format, but oftentimes they're going to jump around, so that you're also prepared for that through our training, to let you know that, like, hey, this is our format, but feel free to take notes or skip around because the judges probably will. And then once you're done with your observations, that can last, depending on the immigration judge. Some are some will go into a lot of detail during the master calendar hearing, and some it's strictly a preliminary hearing. So it usually lasts a couple hours at least to get through several respondents' cases, and respondent is the person who's in the immigration proceedings. And then once you're done there, you go home and you upload all of your information, you transfer it onto our online form, and then that's the information that we have that we can share with folks. And another note is that we have our office hours twice a month, and we also recognize that it's a tough time right now for a lot of folks, and that is something that we recognize as a challenge for everyone. And in immigration court, there are things that you could see that could really affect you. So we absolutely encourage self-care and all that sort of stuff, because even if you don't think, it might not affect you as soon as you see it, but it might be something that as you're entering the forms, it's something that you just notice. So just keep in check whether this sort of experience is affecting you more than you would like. So because of all the things that we're seeing, like detentions at immigration court and all that sort of stuff. So just acknowledging that and sitting with it.
Thank you so much, Emily. And that's going to be a recurring theme throughout. It is welcome and encouraged to reach out to folks and share. Reflection is such a critical part of pro bono engagement. So absolutely lean on folks that you trust, and certainly professionals like us to help you through it. So now I think we'll move on to Eric.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I will just give a little bit of an overview of the program itself and then get into some of the day-to-day mechanics of it. Thought it'd be helpful to give the broad picture of what the Legal Monitor program is. And in essence, it's a group of neutral, objective, professional observers who are trained and available to go out to witness, film, and document law enforcement interactions with those experiencing homelessness and poverty in DC. The program is being created in response to the federal takeover in DC and the administration's statements and directives regarding the homeless community. They were specifically named in the fear and confusion that is caused among a lot of the population here. The legal clinic's overarching mission is, in general, to achieve justice for neighbors experiencing homelessness and poverty, and envisions a district where housing is a human right and people have the access to the resources they need to thrive. And the organization also believes in addressing these issues through low barrier legal support and advocacy to minimize homelessness and the underlying issues rather than criminalizing homelessness, which we believe is ill-informed and has ineffective, and that those types of efforts often, including arrests and displacement, often just make the problem worse as opposed to solving the underlying issues. So this monitor program fits into that overarching mission because it helps protect core constitutional rights for this community, the same rights that all of us are guaranteed under the Constitution, including protection against unreasonable search and seizure, the right to due process, the right to travel, and the right to choose where we live. So the volunteers for this program, the idea is to serve as a neutral professional presence out there that will allow individual monitors to become an integral part in this, accomplishing this main mission by protecting these rights in a couple different ways. First, deterring law enforcement misconduct or abuse or overreach through neutral, objective observation. And here I want to stress, similar to what Emily just mentioned in their program, that this program is not intended to disrupt or interfere with law enforcement. This is intended to have a neutral professional presence for observation and documentation purposes. So that's something we're stressing to all volunteers. Being neutral and objective and professional is important for many reasons, but we're also highlighting among the reasons that it's possible that volunteers for these programs could become witnesses in a future legal proceeding. Second, in the event that the mere presence doesn't deter unlawful or aggressive conduct, legal monitors will be there to film, document, and collect evidence so that these rights may be later vindicated through appropriate channels. And third, this program will provide peace of mind for concerned service providers and recipients of services who have been fearful that simply going to a service center or being seen in public could put them at risk. So to become a legal monitor, you have to fill out a volunteer application, and we can go through some of that, I think, maybe a little later. But once you finish the application, you'll get an email connecting you to the training opportunity. And then once you're trained, you'll sign acknowledgements and then be able to sign up for shifts. And as far as the day-to-day is concerned, I mean, it's probably pretty obvious this is all in person because it's getting people out onto the street and then into the community to observe. But that being said, there's a lot of flexibility in this program to work around people's schedules. The monitor shifts will primarily involve observing service centers and like meal service providers, programs, things like that. But it could also include encampment clearings and things along those lines. But the shifts are going to be set up in 1 hour timeframes, and volunteers will be able to sign up for as many or as few shifts as fit their schedule. So, for example, there are some breakfast programs that, for example, would just hypothetically say 8 to 11 every like Monday through Friday. You aren't under an obligation to sign up at all, but you could sign up for 1 hour. You could sign up for all 3 hours. You could do 1 hour on one day and 3 on the next week. It's completely up to the volunteer and their availability. And because there are a lot of service providers and distribution sites with recurring schedules, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people to get out there and do what they can, but also give them the flexibility to fit within their schedule. We are recommending that people go out in pairs. So if you could get a buddy to sign up with you, that's ideal. Then you could coordinate and go out on shifts together. There's no specific dress code other than like you're going to be getting a pin that the monitor should wear to identify you as a monitor. Just as legal monitor and has the the Washington Legal Clinic's logo on it. Other than that, the only requirement is that monitors dress neutrally. So there's no political messages, nothing pro or anti law enforcement or any particular rights-based group, things like that. Free DC, those types of things. We don't want people to be wearing, and that comes back to the same message I mentioned earlier, that that we're trying to make this as objective as possible. If you're a witness at a later proceeding, the fact that you're wearing anything political certainly would be used to impeach your credibility, and that's just something that we're mindful of and encouraging people to be aware of and respect. As far as the mechanics, you'll also be given an observation form. Similar, I haven't seen Emily's, but similar to that, where we provide a form where you can just carry it with you on a shift, and that's where you'll write down anything that you witnessed. This might be a good time to mention that there's a good chance that nothing happens during a shift, and that's actually a good thing. We hope that no rights are violated or that no one has to experience that type of tense interaction. But I think it's helpful too to keep in mind and remind people that even if nothing happens, that the volunteers are still doing a great service to a vulnerable community by being present out there. And then I think the training will go over all the ins and outs and everything like that, including recommendations on interaction with law enforcement. But as I mentioned, this is not a program where people are going to be interfering or anything like that. People do have the right to film police in public, so we want our monitors to be aware of that, but also we're instructing them to avoid confrontations and just follow directives so that they can stay out of harm's way. So that's a little bit of overview of some of the day in and day out. I guess to finish up my portion there, they will also at the end you'll have an opportunity to upload any materials that you film, photograph, and your observation form to a database that will go directly to us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Another chance to have systemic impact, and for folks even outside of DC, these are really replicable models. So we hope that they'll serve as inspiration. Well, and the ABA is everywhere in the US. So, all right. So Michael, you are up.
Yeah, so to tell you a little bit more about our Workers' Rights Clinic, we do have opportunities for virtual and in-person clinics. Our virtual clinics happen every Wednesday night with volunteer shifts starting between 4:30 and 6:15 p.m. And those shifts, we ask that students or any volunteers block off 3 hours of their time. Typically, intakes only take about 1.5 to 2.5 hours, but in the case that something goes wrong or takes a little bit longer, we do ask that you have 3 hours just blocked off ready to contribute that time. As for dress code, really, especially for virtual clinic, there's no dress code. You just come in what you're comfortable in. For in-person clinic, also no specific dress code, but maybe don't come looking like completely disheveled, I would say, because you're going to be face to face with the client in that situation. And then on the actual day-to-day experience that you guys will be having, essentially for the virtual clinics, I will call you and then let you know that I'll be transferring the phone call over to your worker. Before the clinic, you will have available to you the worker's information, which includes if they speak a language other than English, you'd be matched up with an interpreter. If they've submitted documents that they need the volunteer or attorney to review beforehand, and a brief description of the issue that they're facing, just so that you can be familiar before going into it. We do have trainings that are required before doing these intakes. I do trainings every Thursday, though, and I think Jen or Chris will send out the link to the training soon. But if you can't make a certain training time, then we can schedule a different one around your schedule. And after that training, we just ask that you watch a mock intake, which basically explains how a typical intake would go and the role that you would play. So in the intake, you'd be matched up with the worker, take the phone call, basically go through a list of questions that we have on our legal server. I'm including a summary of situation. And then you'd, after that, join either in person, an actual physical room, or in Zoom, a breakout room with an advising attorney that you've been assigned. The advising attorney will help go over advice and potential next steps or brief services for the client. And then you would call back or rejoin with the worker and explain the advice or potential brief service or potential referral. So that's a little bit of a summary there. I guess the skills that you would need to bring into this intake would definitely be a balance of empathy and also professionalism. So empathy, because a lot of these individuals will be presenting very vulnerable information to you. And so you need to be prepared to talk to them about that, recognize their experiences are valid. And then professionalism, also to be able to focus the questions that you have on the legal issues at hand. A lot of the times these individuals may start talking about things that are a little bit off topic and something that the attorney may not be able to help out with. So we're asking that these intake volunteers are able to use their professionalism and empathy to center the conversation around what the clinic can help out with in that short time that we have that you're volunteering. And yeah, so I think that's a good summary of everything. Jen, let me know if there's any other details that I didn't that I left out.
That was wonderful, Michael. And you just took me back to one of my outings at the Consumer Resource Center here in DC. And the supervising attorney said, and if any of you intake folks are taking a little longer than we think you should, we'll tap your shoulder. And I think I was the only one who tap. The students were great. So that's
Right.
really helpful oversight or overview. I am going to, I think, give you a break. We're going to circle back to really specifically revisit how students can get involved. But I want to give you all a rest for a minute and tap into Adrian's brilliance here. And Michael, you segued very nicely with talk of professionalism and really critical, and we recognize that students are going to be in all different phases of their law school educational trajectories when they volunteer. So Adrian, could you just give an overview of some of the most important factors that should be in the back of students' minds when they're coming into a pro bono project?
Sure. Thanks, Jen. So a lot of times it's during 1L where people are first engaging in sort of their first legal experience from the perspective of an attorney or somebody supporting an attorney. So most people have not had professional responsibility, model rules of what, it's all a mystery as you're knee deep in contracts, torts, etc. But once you're stepping into that role of supporting a client or supporting an attorney who's supporting a client, it's time to put your lawyer hat on a little bit. So one of the biggest things is confidentiality. People are working on interesting work, hard work, substantive work as they're working with clients and potential clients, and really taking care of that client through confidentiality and knowing what your attorney has to do, which is keep that conversation confidential within the rules of professional responsibility is part of your duty too. And so it's not up to you to know all the ins and outs. One of the biggest things is communication. So sometimes placements don't have time to go through all of the ethics and confidentiality rules that are specific because they do differ by placement. So don't be afraid to ask. So are there any things I should be keeping in mind? What are the confidentiality rules that you use for pro bono volunteers, or you could say interns or externs, as that can be a good corollary for some placements. So asking early and often to make sure that you're staying within the confines. Who can I talk to internally about what I'm doing here? Because sometimes there are confidentiality rules within the organization that you can talk to one attorney about XYZ, but maybe not another attorney about it. So the key thing is to ask, and as you're taking care of that client, you don't want to go back to, your contracts class and tell everything that happened at that placement, because it should stay within that placement. In the broader sense of communication and professional development, as these organizations are relying on you to do really important work, you want to be in communication about, what's going on with you. So in our program, we have people sign up well in advance for some of these projects. And if something happens and you can't make it, something's going on with you, you're a whole person, you're a whole human being. Don't be scared. reach out. And if you don't know who to reach out to at the organization, reach out to your pro bono contact so they can help connect you and they can communicate, because you want to make sure that the organization has what they need and that they're not wondering sort of where you are, et cetera. So those are my biggest tips. Communication is really the overarching theme of the day.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much. And I know oftentimes, and I certainly was anxious as a law student to give information that folks wanted and needed. And there is, as you said, when you put your lawyer hat on, there are certain pieces of client representation that you got to steer clear of with unauthorized practice rules. So if you could just give a little bit of a sense, and this may also be putting on some of your externships hat, but the where you don't want to cross the line, and we'll talk about this with our other panelists as well, when it comes to if folks pose questions to you and are just looking expectantly because you're clearly smart and well educated, that you'll have a good answer.
That's such a great question. And then this goes into the unauthorized practice of law piece, because you're helping the attorney, but you're not the attorney. But when people come into a legal environment seeking help, especially if they're in crisis, you can be pushed. Sometimes my externship students are pushed. Like, can you just give me the answer? Can you just do this for me? Can you just file this for me? Can you say that you'll do all of these things? And so, as Michael was saying, with empathy, reminding them of your role. I'm an intake volunteer. Here's what I can do. I can give you legal information and or I can ask certain questions. Anything beyond that, I have to refer to an attorney. And that attorney is the expert on your case and is the best person to help you. I know that means waiting to talk to someone else, and it's yet another referral that you have to go through, and that is hard, but I want to make sure that your situation is handled appropriately for you so you can get the best representation. So there is a bit of boundary setting, and there are interns and externs and pro bono volunteers who have gone through this, your attorneys who you're working with have gone through this. So again, communicate, ask them how to approach it. And if you ever find your situation, I don't think this would happen with any of our pro bono placements, where you just feel like you're thrown to the wolves and you're being asked to do way more than what it feels like you should be doing, definitely pause and check in. And it can feel a little awkward. It can be anxiety inducing to put that call on hold or to go to a busy attorney and be like, hey, I really am wondering if I should be going this far, but just stop and ask, because you don't want to do anything for your future bar card or their bar card. And everybody has the same goals, and you just want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Thank you so much. That's perfect. And I will mention for pledges at your law schools, if you report your hours voluntarily or as part of a graduation requirement, definitely check with your specific program. But I think many, if not most, allow training time to be counted as well. It's really critical to your being well prepared. So just look for those specifics. And since you all are wonderful at segues, Adrienne touched on the interaction with lawyers during pro bono activity, and I think I'm going to start with you, Michael, because you mentioned the interplay of the students and the attorneys assisting on the cases with workers. Could you just, and then we'll move on to Eric and Emily, could you just share and revisit a little bit, because I think you touched on this somewhat, what students can expect in terms of interacting with practicing attorneys?
Yeah, totally. So we, during every clinic, have a varying number of advising attorneys, because they're also volunteers, so they also sign up for shifts when they can make it. But typically on a Wednesday night, we'll have about 15 clients and 15 volunteers, and then that would translate to about 3 or 4 attorneys that you may be working with. So you'll be assigned attorney beforehand. And then when you finish your intake with a worker, then you'll join the breakout room, join your specific advising attorney. And one thing I think that's important to mention is that they might be working on another case while you join in, and that's perfectly perfectly fine. I think if anything, it's a great opportunity for you to be able to see the interactive process between the attorney and another volunteer and another type of case. So a lot of the times these volunteers will come in and listen just to the attorney and the attorney's process on how they take in the information, the summary of information, and translate it into advice. But then once you get your opportunity to speak with that advising attorney, you'll share your screen, basically explain everything you can as if you're the best journalist possible. Especially, we like to say, get the who, what, when, where, why of the situation and in chronological order. And just try to present as much as you can to the attorney, rather than having to just go back for a bunch of follow-up questions. Just try to get as much as you can from the worker at the first time, and then present that to the advising attorney, and then you can go on from there. But that's essentially summarizing the interactive opportunity with the attorney. Basically, you will get that certain amount of time, typically anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, to go over the case with them, and then later you'd go convey the advice. You may also have the opportunity to draft a demand letter. These demand letters we do have templates for, and so you'd fill out everywhere where you see brackets, and then come back with the advising attorney, have them review it, and then you'd explain it word for word to the client. So that's essentially the opportunity that they have with the attorneys, just about shadowing for about 30 minutes to an hour.
Wonderful. And Eric, I know the nature of the work with the legal monitoring is a bit different, but if you could share about, and I think particularly in the training portion of the experience, what the interaction might look like.
Yeah, so I mean the training will be kind of on demand, but I'll be providing it along with another attorney who's done a lot of legal observation type trainings before. So you'll get a lot of that insight from folks who have been doing this and understand the ins and outs of it. As far as the actual shifts are concerned, I mean, you are mostly out there by yourself or with someone else that's volunteering with you. But obviously, if something comes up during a shift, if there's concerns, people will be able to reach out to me. Some shifts I might be there, other people from the legal clinic might be there. We have some other both outreach workers and the advocacy attorneys sometimes go out to clearings or different things like that. Their role is a little different because sometimes they have to help out with property and things like that. So that'll be explained that, the volunteers' roles are a little different. They have to be, not interacting as opposed to jumping in and taking stuff. And that can be a little challenging, I think, when you're out there to not jump in and help. I think if a lot of people would want to do something and just having to remind themselves that what they're doing by not interfering is doing is fulfilling a valuable role. But there will be that potential for connection and support. And obviously, if anyone from the legal clinic or myself is there, they're welcome to interact and chat with us and ask any questions they have. And I did want to say a few things as Adrian was speaking about the kind of responsibilities and ethical obligations. One thing I didn't mention previously, I wanted to make sure to stress is that there is a confidentiality issue with the work we're doing here as well. People are going to be filming and taking pictures and overhearing things, maybe getting names and phone numbers. So it's going to be really critical for people not to share that. And I know there are a lot of efforts, maybe activist groups that are filming and posting things online. That's another thing that's going to be prohibited. Like people can't share the information that they're getting as a part of this program with the outside world, even with friends and family. So it might be a little difficult or uncomfortable, but that's something that it's really important from a confidentiality standpoint. And I didn't know, I've got a few thoughts on some of the other benefits of the program, but I don't know if there's a better time to share that or if I could just jump into some of all right, getting the thumbs up. So I just, one of the educational benefits that I think might not be obvious from this at first glance is just the benefit of observing interactions that might end up becoming the subject of future litigation, whether criminal or civil. from my experience in law school, that's not really something you learn about or really think much about. A lot of times we're coming at it after there's just facts you read a quick summary of, and the majority of what you're studying and then analyzing is the legal implications of that. But I think it's really helpful to understand how the process starts, what types of facts and factors are important as it relates to later legal claims. And so even just the process of filling out the observation form, while not strictly legal work, can be illuminating and educational from the perspective that it gives you a sense of what types of facts need to be fleshed out in advance or prior to taking potential legal action. Because again, it's obviously easy to focus on the legal analysis, which is clearly important and critical, but you don't want to overlook the facts, and it can be easy to kind of get disconnected from that. And being there on the ground, it just gives you a different sense of the potential complexities. And if you don't collect that material early enough, you might lose the opportunity down the road to gather important facts that could really bear on your claims or cases. And that's one of the benefits of this program, is that the monitors are out there collecting that information that then can be preserved later on. So I just wanted to make a plug for that. And then also, once people are licensed attorneys, there are other ways to get involved with the legal clinic through the legal assistance program, where you're directly handling client cases and with the overarching legal support that our organization gives.
Terrific. And I have one follow-up for you is it possible for say high school students or we're I think we're all thinking of mentees that may benefit from this experience, is kind of your volunteer guidelines, would that be possible as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't finalized like if there's going to be a specific age group. I know there just in general, because people are going to be potential witnesses, although albeit unlikely, having someone who's too young could just create an uncomfortable situation down the road. But there is no specific kind of age limit at this point. And particularly if they were interested in taking the training and participating with someone else who was an adult, that might be something that could work out.
Terrific. Thank you, Eric. And Emily, and this a bit of a catch-all too, because I see we're at 12:49. Is there anything that we didn't, I know we talked about whether it's interaction with the supervisory powers at the ABA and Amica, and or any other factors that you want to be sure students know. And then I'm going to start with you just to touch on how students sign up, just a reminder.
No, I think yeah, I think most of it's been covered, or it's covered in the training. And the similar to what Eric was just sharing about the benefits, I think the only last tidbit I want to say is the one of the big benefits of the court observation, the immigration court observation and awareness project, is the folks, there's a lot of hateful rhetoric out there, and that has inspired policies that have had extreme and significant impacts on our non-citizen friends, neighbors, and family. And this is an opportunity to see really what that looks like on a granular level. The going into immigration court is an experience, and it can be, and it often should be, very impactful for folks. So this is just an opportunity to see kind of like, you hear all these buzzwords, you hear all of this just kind of generally, but immigration court, you will see it. You will see a person who is in removal proceedings and what that means, and everything that they've done to try and fix their situation and all that sort of stuff. So it's just a great opportunity to connect kind of the headlines to, oh, this is a real person in front of me. And as far as signing up, we have you'll be getting materials that have a QR code, which is really exciting. And I know that Christina was kind enough to share our links in the chat, but you can sign up through there. That'll take you to our Teachable. And through Teachable, you'll get information about our twice a month office hours. And the office hours is, because it's more of an independent opportunity and generally there's not a lot of attorney time, that's a time that almost every time we have office hours, there's at least a little bit of Immigration 101 of, hey, people keep talking about self-deport. What is self-deport? So there's usually a time that you'll get a little bit of immigration info, and in addition to hearing all the trends that other folks are seeing. And also information about registering as a volunteer and information about our fabulous DC area our DC area focused project with Amica Center.
I would have just eaten this up in law school. Okay, and Michael, I'm going to circle around to you for just the logistical. How do people get involved?
Yeah, totally. Thanks. And first, I'd like to just bounce off of a little bit what both Eric and Emily said, to talk about the benefits of our clinic when it comes to having the opportunity to see cases that may be screened for more impact litigation from our team. So yeah, we do deal with a lot of clients at a time. So for the most part, we're unable to provide direct representation, but for particularly egregious cases in the workplace, this clinic is how we screen all of our intakes for our litigation docket. And a lot of the times that can be very, very impactful, like Emily and Eric were saying, in creating better workplace protections through this impact litigation. So I just wanted to emphasize that as well. And then I also wanted to emphasize the confidentiality. As Eric stated with his program, this program also does require a high level of confidentiality, as the client and attorney do have a protected client-attorney privilege. So we do want to make sure that that is staying within the clinic, all of that vulnerable information that I mentioned. And then finally, just how you can get involved. I think a link to our website was shared, but on our website, there's another link to actually get to the volunteer sign-up form. You're going to use that form, and then at the end of it, there is a separate link, which maybe it's too many links, but that would lead you to a booking page where you can book a training with me. Once again, I hold them on Thursdays from 1:30 to 4:30. But if you're unable to make that, then you can just message me. I believe my email will be included in that form, and we can set up a different time to get trained.
Wonderful, thank you. And I will just remind, I am keeping an eye on questions. If there are any that I do not get to before we wrap up in the next 5 minutes, we'll absolutely follow up with you. So feel free to include those. Adrian, I just wanted to circle back to you about the possibility of, or how students might find pro bono projects at their own school or generate them, including through maybe student orgs or other avenues.
Sure. So as I think I alluded to earlier, the DC area consortium, which may not be relevant to all of our guests here, the law schools get together and develop training and projects together to relieve the burden on the organization from having to train, each school that's right next door to each other, back to back. We all get together and do it together. And I know that in my role at Howard, I send those pro bono trainings out to all students, but also a lot of students develop their own projects through student groups. So because I have the benefit of seeing all the hours that people are inputting into our system, a lot of organizations, whether it might be an employment law organization or a business organization, any sort of student organization that you can think of, or affinity group, go out into the community and do work there as well. And we allow students to log that for pro bono. One difference in Howard's program is that we allow up to 25 hours of community service to be put towards our pledge. Not all law schools do that. So you really want to make sure you know the rules of your school and the difference between, for when it becomes relevant, between your school's pro bono rules and your state bar's pro bono rules, if they have a requirement as well. And sometimes students are just interested. They might think they want to work at a cool organization and they make up their own project. And so I know that students come to me and say, hey, can I just volunteer for this organization? And if the organization says, sure, why not? That can count as well. So don't be afraid to be creative. Pro bono is a great way to try out different things without maybe committing to an entire externship or your entire summer to it. And you develop your public interest legal community in the process as well.
Thank you so much. And that's right. With respect to jurisdictional requirements, we do just have the New York pro bono admission requirement, the only state that requires 50 hours for you to apply for admission after you've passed the exam. So if you have specific questions about that, and or if it's dispositive for you before you participate in a project, I encourage you to talk to your the supervisor on that project and ensure that they are willing, or if they are unwilling, that you know to sign an affidavit of compliance for New York. So that's just to tuck away for folks potentially interested in New York. And I know we've got 2 minutes. That we've touched on it in a number of ways, the transferable skills. And I know, Eric, the other day we in another conversation had a really interesting nuance, and you've each addressed it. But even if a student is thinking, I want to do immigration work, employment work, I'm not interested in housing issues, I want to be a whatever litigator, something or other. If you could, and maybe if we only have time, Eric, if you wouldn't mind sharing your transition from DOJ and Washington Legal Clinic and from criminal to civil, and sort of how you you described it, I think, really well, kind of the learning process.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can replicate that, but I'll do my best. Yeah, I mean, I definitely faced some issues just personally, professionally after resigning. Like all of my experience was criminal, post law school, and that's really valuable. But anyone who's done both knows that the procedures and just kind of rules of the road are very different in the civil sphere. So in many ways, I felt like I was starting over, fresh out of law school and applying at a time where I was competing against a number of highly qualified civil law, civil rights attorneys applying for similar jobs. So I spent a lot of time thinking about what skills I had that were transferable and how to kind of market those skills and just think more deeply about making yourself competitive for a different position. And one of those recommendations, I think, is just to prioritize the connection and your interest and dedication to a broader mission rather than a specific job type or skill set. I think a lot of employers want to know that you actually want to be there and that you actually care about the work. And that matters more in a lot of situations than having done this specific task or that specific task. And so for me, obviously, I've had this like long history of this connected mission focus to help vulnerable people and protect their rights, and was really able to lean heavily into that to show that I'm, regardless of whether I've done this exact thing or not, I'm the type of person who you can trust to really that they want to be there and are going to put their heart and soul into it. And so I think that's one of the benefits, getting to your point, Jen, or your question of volunteering and doing these types of things. Like you may not really know yet in law school. I didn't know where I was going to end up until after I graduated. I finally got the opportunity to move into the DOJ world. But just volunteering and doing internships in the human rights sphere really helped market myself for that, even though it wasn't the exact same thing that I had been doing. And I think that speaks volumes. And then just keeping in mind that legal analysis is transferable, and the skills you learn in one area of law, you can apply them to other areas. And so pretty much anything you're doing is going to be valuable. So even if you wanted to go to a firm or something like that, I know a lot of firms value people who have done public interest work, and you just learn, especially when you're down on the client level and interacting with people. I mean, working in the law is heavily, like, if you want to be a litigator, working with people is one of the most important skills that you're going to develop, and just being able to interact with people, particularly people who have experienced trauma. It's a really important piece to put in your toolbox that may not be readily apparent in just a general career track conversation.
You did it. That was fabulous. And I see Chris is going to pop back in just a moment. And I'm sorry I put us, now it's going to be 3 minutes over. I just put one plug in the chat for the DC Walk for Justice, which is going to be next Thursday. It should be a lot of fun. And we'd love to see law students out there joining all of the lawyers and the judges and the other folks who are going to be there at Nats Park. A lot of fun. And I want to say thank you to everyone here for your preparation and for participating today, and really shining a light on some cool opportunities for students, and hopefully getting the creative thinking flowing with other administrators like Adrian and I, and faculty like Adrian out in the world. So Chris, I'm going to hand it back to you.
And all I'm going to say is thank you. Just the same. Thank you to the folks that joined us live in the audience. Thank you to everyone who is joining us in the future at some point watching this recording. We hope that you've learned a lot. I also will plug the Walk for Justice and the rest of DC Pro Bono Week. Again, check out the schedule of events, sign up for what interests you. It's a wonderful way to get connected to folks that are actively doing this work right now in the DMV and learning about what that means. So thank you again to our panelists for sharing their incredible insights, and to our folks that joined us today. We're really happy that you were able to learn with us. Happy Friday and have a fantastic weekend. Thank you all so much.